Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining our Client Base Online 101 Building Profiles today. So we'll try and make this quick and easy and painless. And we want you to know, too, that, Client Base it's a great product. I've used it for years, and it's really a client management product so that I do all of my reservations and things in there, invoice in it. And it has a lot of resources and things that I think would be beneficial to you. Now, that said, some people just create a profile just so they can invoice it, and that's fine too. So however it works best for you, but we want you to know that these resources are there to take advantage of if you wish to, if it's beneficial or adds value to what you do. So we're going to go through building profiles today. We hope you will join us for the rest of the series, but we're going to do this in bite-sized portions, beginning with just building profiles and marketing codes. And hopefully Allie's going to do a separate webinar for us totally on marketing. So I hope you'll join that too. She'll be sending out information on that. But we're going to cover the marketing codes, where you find them, how you do it, but she'll do a more detailed, in-depth marketing webinar at a later date. So that said, I'm going to close out showing myself and sharing just the screen so it's not as distracting, and we'll get started. So first of all, as I said, we want to look at Client Base Online and tell you, for those of you who don't know, exactly how you log into it. Here's the login, but you can just do clientbaseonline.com and it comes up. To sign in, you're each going to have your own individual login password, but the Sabre PCC is one sub that is for everybody. And as Allie always reminds me, it is a Sabre product. It doesn't mean you have to have Sabre or even work on a GDS, but it is a Sabre product. It is not proprietary to Ondavo Travel. One of the reasons we do choose to use Client Base is because it's the chosen by Virtuoso to do their marketing, and this is how we connect with them. So there are a lot of good options, and we'll cover that a little bit more later on. So logging in, first of all, when you're creating a profile, it's always good to make sure that there's not already a profile. So if I wanted to look for a profile, I would click in profile type, and you could choose corporate, vendor, agent, etc. But we're primarily going to always click on leisure. You can put the profile name if that's what you wanted to do, but you can also search by other features. Traveler contact name. That's not always the same as the profile name. It could be a separate traveler within the profile that might not come up if you were just asking for the profile name. You could search by phone, you could search by city, you could search by agent. For example, if I wanted to see all of my profiles, I could search for all profiles that have Meredith Price as the lead agent. I can even sort this alphabetically if I like. And here I have a nice list of all of my clients. I can see how many I have in my client base profiles. And it has, so I could search for them this way, but this is nice that I could just see a total list of all of them. So if I were looking to build a profile for Meredith Price and I checked first, oh, there already is one, so I might want to check that out. But for our purposes today, we're going to create a new profile. So we're going to look up here under Create New Profile. Again, for our purposes, we're really always going to use leisure. You'll notice that it's color-coded, so you have the tan and the green. All of these things in the tan color are required. You have to put them in or you cannot create the profile. These things listed in green are certainly suggestions, but not always required. You can get by without putting in there, but I would suggest you try and put in addresses. I think that's good. So let's just say we were going to create a profile today for Mike Bell. So let's put in his name. Now I could make this, a lot of times people say, well, how's the best way to list the profile name? Is it going to be, let's say it's Mike Bell, but let's say I only talked to his wife, Ann, so now I want it under Ann Bell. The reason you would probably want to put it as you would address a letter or something, because you can do labels and things from this, so the profile name would be how it would be addressed. So I do think it's always good to put Mr. and Mrs. or Doctor or whatever it is. I do like to put in the address, because if there were two Mike Bells, that might distinguish between the two as to, you know, which Mike Bell it is. And there really are more duplications in here than you would think. So you want to fill that in. I don't put in the country, because if I were using this to address labels, I don't want it to say USA. But for those of you who do have clients in multiple countries, you would want to put the country. Back to our required fields, you do have to put in the primary profile number. This always becomes our interface ID. So I'm going to put in the phone number. I can change that. I can make it say cell or whatever, but for our purposes, we'll put it in as cell. And notice it automatically became the interface ID. The interface ID is the number that identifies your client in our accounting system. It's not necessarily listed under the name Mike Bell, it's listed under this interface ID. So the phone number is always required, and that becomes the interface ID. It will automatically default to primary agent. It's under my login, so it assumes it's me, and my branch number. Now note here, agrees to receive marketing calls at this number. You want to be careful about that, because this client may not want that. So make sure that you take that out. Also, if I enter an email, it's going to say agrees to receive marketing material at this email. He may not want that. He might, we don't know. But if you disable all of the marketing email information, do understand that he's not going to receive any Virtuoso marketing. And we'll address that a little bit more when we're talking about marketing codes. Under here, you do have to put your branch number, which almost everybody is 103. A few exceptions, but almost everybody's 103. The pseudo city, it automatically defaults. Everybody is under CBSE, and your individual house account. So I've completed everything. Now notice here, it came up and said a client profile already exists with interface you have selected. So obviously this person already has a profile, or at least under this number. So I realize I should have chosen a different number for that. So let me go back and do that. And it will default to that again. Also, you get the same kind of thing if you don't put in the address. It doesn't mean you have to put it in, but it will call it to your attention. Notice here, I could be more descriptive, putting the gender, citizenship, birth date. There is another place to do that. And again, they agrees to receive marketing calls and marketing material. So I don't want this person to receive that, so we're going to click out of that. Notice here it says this is an optional field, but not completed. I didn't put one in there, so I'm going to put one in there. But I didn't have to. I could have still hit save, and it would have completed the profile for me. Okay, so we now have our general profile created. That's really all I have to put in there. Notice that it says when it was created, who's the agent, the interface ID. Each profile you create has a profile number. So we've got all of his information in here. Now, if I look at this, and I always go back and check, and I go, oh, that's the wrong zip code, I can edit and correct that. Under here, the additional information, notice this referred by. This is certainly not something you have to use, but I've had some people ask me about it. So if I had someone that referred them, I might want to put that in there. Or let's say I hosted a cruise night or some sort of consumer night, and I wanted to know all of the people that called me and created profiles from that. So I could create that in there. So that's something you can do. You certainly don't have to, but it's an option. So again, you've got all your just general information, and now we're just going to start working our way down through here to flesh out this profile a little bit more. Under communications, here's where we already have the cell phone. We have the other number, other travelers. I can edit these at any time, or I could add. If I wanted to add additional, I would identify it with which traveler in the profile, and it would be to that person specifically. I could put in even social media addresses if you wanted, their Facebook profile, those kind of things. So you can add a lot of really good information. And again, the more information you add, the better it is if you plan to use any of the marketing tools, etc. So again, I can edit, I can add under communications. I could add, let's say they have a second home at the beach, I could add a secondary address, so I can save all of that information. Under remarks, you don't have to put a thing in here, but you can to say, you know, always travels with their nanny, or shellfish allergy, or must have a bulkhead seat, any kind of things that you just want to remind yourself that are important to this client, that he's a VIP client, or, you know, all kinds of things. Lives at the lake from June to, you know, December, those kind of things. I'll skip over marketing codes and let Allie come back to that shortly. Under travelers, we're going to add however many people we want to add, like we have Mike Bell, or let's add his wife, Ann. So we're going to add another person, and we can fill it out. Now again, under the profile, we can tell so much about this client, but we don't have to fill it all out. But the things that I think are important, obviously I would want to put her name. I would probably put, you know, her middle name as it's listed on her passport. I would put her gender, citizenship. Here's a place I can put her known traveler number. I can put her cell phone number. I can put her date of birth. I can put her passport information. Notice there's room for passport 1 and 2. That's not for her and her husband. Some people do have more than one passport, so it gives you a place to put that. You don't have to fill out any or all of this, but if you're putting in a passport number, you really just have to put in the passport number at expiration. They used to ask for issuing city, and you don't have to put that. If it weren't a U.S. passport, I'd certainly put that on there. You can put emergency contact. And the cool thing about all of this, the more you put, the more helpful it is that there are capabilities that I could create, you know, an airline reservation from all the information by just clicking on PNR merge, and it takes all of this passport information, date of birth, TSA information into my airline reservation. So that'll be covered in another series, but another part of the training series, but just to know that's why you might want to put all of these things in there. Also, if you use David Langley, our International Air Desk, this is what he requires. He requires you to fill all of this out, because that way he can access it all correctly without you having to email him passport numbers and credit cards and that kind of thing. This is a very secure way for him to access client information from you without you having to send it. So I could be very detailed in, you know, he's a Delta frequent, you know, he prefers Delta, he prefers Hilton. I could do all of that. You don't have to, but there's room to do it, you know, if they like. So mainly I've filled out, you know, what I wanted to, and I would click save. I really haven't put much in here, but just to give you an idea. So now we have her and we have him. So you can always go back to, if I remembered now, oh, now she sent me her passport information, I can add another person, or I can go back in and view. and then edit it. So just because you don't add it in the beginning doesn't mean you can't go back and change it. Other than that, we have credit cards. Credit card information, I can add. I can put it in here, my credit card. Who does this credit? This is Ann's credit card we're going to use. We can put in the credit card number. The expiration date has to have an actual date in it, so you have to do it, and it doesn't really matter, you know, what it is. You just have to put it in there. I don't have to fill all of this out. Under here, I might put the security code. I might also note, you know, a lot of passengers have multiple credit cards and they only want to use their American Express for travel, but they also want to use their Visa for certain things to get points, or they may have a corporate card. So you might want to put in here, this is their personal card, always used for hotels. You know, they might have a Hilton Visa card. So you can put things like that to kind of keep straight which card to use if they're using multiple cards. So we have that. Now, if I failed to put this in there, if we were putting in here the credit card number, notice that it is all in there, but this is PCI compliant. So when I go back in there, if I were to save this information, if I were to go back in there, notice that it just gives me the last 4 digits. So how do I get the rest of the number? Because now I need that number to give to a hotel. Notice the little secure, the lock. All I have to do is click on that lock. Yes, I do want to see the whole number, and there it is. So there we go. Loyalty programs, they're, you know, Delta frequent flyers or whatever, I can add that. I can add a car program if they're a hotel, they're Hilton Honored members. I can add if they're past passengers with a cruise line. And again, any of these, you don't have to fill out every issue by, you don't have to do all of that, but it's there if you want it to. The only other thing before we get to marketing I do want to show you is one cool little feature here is under attachments. In the attachments, let's say, for example, the client sent me a copy of his passport. Well, what am I going to do with that? I printed it off. Now, what am I going to do with it? Put it in a file somewhere, you know, but this way it's right here. It's secure. It's where I can find it. I could name that attachment as passport. When the client emailed it to me, I would have had to have saved it into my documents. So, or wherever you're going to save it, you have a lot of choices that you could, you know, wherever you're going to save it, but you would go to that area, pull the passport up, open it, and save it. So now I will have their passport attached to this profile, which is great because you do need passport information for a lot of things, and that's a good thing to have. So now we're going to jump to marketing codes, and I'm going to let Allie, I'll keep it on my screen, but Allie, if you will take it away and talk to us about marketing codes.
Okay, great. Thanks, Meredith. Yeah, so as you can see, once you've built your client's leisure profile, one area for you to code is marketing codes. So you can select, as Meredith has here, the marketing codes tab, and that brings up all of the marketing codes that you would want to go through and mark for your client. And just to piggyback on what Meredith had said, that it's not an client base is not an Ondavo product. It is owned by Sabre. It is totally private, so other advisors are not able to see any of your client's information. So it's secure, and only admins, so such as myself, Kirsten, or Meredith, are able to view your database. So it just offers another layer of security, so you can feel confident that your client's information is being secure. So generally what I recommend, we're building this leisure profile based off of what Meredith has already shown you, but I also really recommend you entering yourself as a test case. So you would just go ahead and build a leisure profile, as Meredith has just shown, for yourself and code yourself to receive some marketing. So you can really get an idea of what your client is going to be getting, when they're going to be getting it, when Virtuoso sends those pieces out. So if we scroll down to the 6th field called marketing, I want to point out that in this section, just a little bit up there, Meredith, sorry about that, there are 3 paid publications. There's only 3. Everything else is free through Virtuoso, your membership. So Virtuoso Life, Virtuoso Traveler, and Virtuoso Best of the Best. So if you check the box and have your client receive those pieces, there is a fee involved in that. And we'll go ahead and cover that on a future webinar. And there is very specific ways in which you use each of these publications to market to your clients. So it's really not a one-size-fits-all, and you really want to understand how you can utilize these really well-done pieces that Virtuoso does to market to your clients. And it's really beneficial. So we can cover that on a future webinar when we go through that. But for today's purposes, we're just going to go through the coding. So if we scroll back up to the top, we're going to start at the top with the trip total trip budget all the way through down to destinations. So you really want to complete as much as you can from the top all the way down to destinations, if you can. Now, you may not know all of the information for your client, and it is okay to guess if you can, because the more robust you can complete this on your client's behalf, the better Virtuoso is going to understand about your client and be able to really tailor these marketing pieces to your client. So it's really for your client's benefit to complete as much information as you can on this profile. So going back to the marketing tab, we discussed the paid publications. And if you notice, there's also a category for direct mail and email campaign. Now, those are free. So if you mark those for your clients, they will get them, and I highly recommend that you do. However, one thing to note is if you don't complete the interests or the destination categories, then Virtuoso will not mark it for direct mail or email campaign, even though you may have that marked. So it's really important, again, that you complete the profile in its entirety. So looking at interests and destinations, you really want, the goal is really to mark at least 10 categories, if possible, for each section. That way it really gives Virtuoso an idea about your clients' interests and what destinations they're most interested in. So one thing to know on this also is that you really don't want to go through and mark everything on either category. They call that blanket marketing, and they will actually completely disregard your client's profile. So you want to make sure you don't do that you really are selective. So once you've gone through all of that and you've marked all of these, you just would go up to the top and hit save. And that's essentially it for any kind of marketing coding. And you can exit out of the profile, and just how Meredith showed you how we logged in and pulled up your client's name to view their profile. If you wanted to make any changes for the future on any of the marketing codes, let's say that you did have them marked to receive Virtuoso Traveler and you decided, I'm just not going to send that to that client and pay for that, for them to receive that, then you have to go back in here, go through the same process, and you have to unselect it. Meredith is selecting that so you can see what that looks like. So if you don't go in here and circle back and unselect it or select it, then your clients will either A, never get it, or B, continue to get it. So you really want to make sure that you're paying attention to the marketing codes and how you have your clients coded on their leisure profile to ensure that they're really getting the marketing that you would like them to receive on your behalf. And another note that I just want to mention is that when Virtuoso does send out marketing pieces on your behalf, if you have a logo, for example, on your Virtuoso profile that is your business logo, then that will arrive on all of the pieces. So it's very personalized to you and your business. So even though Virtuoso is doing this marketing for you on your behalf, your client, it looks like you're sending it out. And they're really well done pieces. So I highly recommend everybody to go in and really pay attention to these categories to ensure that Virtuoso is doing this marketing on your behalf.
Thank you, Allie. I think that was most helpful. And again, Allie's going to set up a separate webinar on marketing, and there are a lot of great tools you can use, and she will go into much more detail about that. But for our purposes today, just in showing you how to build a profile, that's part of it. So I think we've pretty much covered everything. If you have individual questions, please shoot me an email. I'll be happy to address them or to work with you individually. Again, it's really as good as what you put into it. And if it's not something you really want to utilize, that's fine. You certainly don't have to. But I think as we go through it, you'll see that there really are a lot of benefits to using ClientBase to its capacity. So I hope you will join us in the future and join us for all of the series as we will be talking about these in more detail. Next week's training will be on building a res card and Live Connect. So thank you so much for all of your time. We look forward to talking to you again. And again, shoot me any questions or let me know of things that you would like to see more in-depth training on, and we'll work toward that. So in the meantime, everybody have a great day, and thank you for participating.